Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating on the nightstand. The screen glowed with a blaring emergency alert. Emergency broadcast system civil authorities have issued a public safety alert: remain indoors and await further instructions. The message didn't say much, just warnings to avoid heavily populated areas, reports of violent disturbances, and instructions to stay off the roads. My groggy brain struggled to make sense of it, but something in my gut twisted. I switched on the news. Every channel had the same emergency notice, a loop of a monotone voice repeating evacuation orders. That's when I checked my texts. Mom, don't go outside, turn on the news, stay safe. Jake, my best friend. Dude, are you seeing this? I rubbed my eyes and peeked through the blinds. The sun had barely started to rise, but something was off. No cars, no joggers, no distant hum of city life. Just silence. Then came the first scream. It was distant, but I felt it more than heard it, like the moment before a thunderclap. Then another and another. I grabbed my phone and called Jake. He answered immediately. Bro, don't leave your apartment, he said, his voice shaking. What's happening? You wouldn't believe me if I told you. My stomach tightened. Try me. There was rustling on his end, like he was moving. I saw a guy. He was attacking someone, like tearing into them. I frowned. Tearing into them? What do you mean? I mean, he wasn't just hitting the guy, he was biting him. I laughed, but it came out forced. You're messing with me. I wish I was. The guy should have gone down, but he didn't. I saw him take a baseball bat to the head, and he kept moving. My blood ran cold. Stay put, Jake said. I'm coming to you. Before I could argue, he hung up. I turned back to the window, my pulse pounding. In the distance, a car alarm blared, cutting through the morning quiet. Then, movement. Down the street, a man stumbled toward an intersection. He was limping, his clothes torn. Another person ran up behind him, but they weren't offering help. They lunged, tackled him to the ground. And then, I saw it. The attacker wasn't just assaulting the man, they were clawing at him, biting into his shoulder. I stumbled back, my breath catching. My mind refused to process what I'd just seen. The emergency alert buzzed again. Seek shelter immediately. Do not engage the infected. I barely had time to register that last word before the first person slammed against my door. The first hit against my door rattled the frame. A second came almost immediately after, harder this time, like whoever was outside wasn't just knocking, they were trying to break in. My chest tightened. I moved quietly, pressing my ear against the wood. Heavy, ragged breathing. A low, guttural groan. I stepped back. Another impact, harder. I didn't have a weapon. Nothing useful anyway. My kitchen knives were too short, and I wasn't about to open the door just to swing a frying pan. My mind raced, flipping through escape options. The window? I was on the 3rd floor. Not a great idea. The fire escape? Maybe. My phone buzzed again. Jake. You still at home? He asked, voice hushed. Yeah, I whispered. Someone's at my door. Don't open it. I figured. I'm almost there, he said. Stay quiet. Another slam against the door. The wood splintered slightly. My heart pounded. They're gonna get in. Do you have anything to block it? I scrambled, dragging my couch toward the door. It wasn't much, but it was heavy. The next hit came, and the whole door frame shuddered, but it held. Then, silence. I held my breath. The breathing on the other side of the door grew erratic, like whoever or whatever it was had lost interest. Then the footsteps faded. I exhaled slowly, my body stiff with tension. A few minutes later, I heard a car engine revving outside. I ran to the window and saw Jake's old pickup skidding to a stop in front of my building. He barely had time to put it in park before he was out, waving frantically for me to come down. "Go, go, go," he shouted. I hesitated. "There's one of them out there. They're everywhere." That was all I needed to hear. I grabbed my backpack, shoved in my phone, charger, and a few bottles of water, then sprinted for the fire escape. As I climbed down, I caught a glimpse of the street. My stomach dropped. Jake wasn't exaggerating. The city was falling apart. Fires burned in the distance. People ran in every direction. Others, ones that weren't running, staggered aimlessly, their movements jerky and unnatural. Some collapsed, only to rise again moments later. I jumped the last few feet to the ground and sprinted to Jake's truck. The second I got in, he floored it. We sped through the streets, weaving past abandoned cars, overturned trash bins, and things I didn't want to look at too closely. "What's happening?" I asked, breathless. Jake's knuckles were white on the wheel. "They're calling it an outbreak. Some kind of virus." "From where?" "No clue. Doesn't matter." He swerved around a wrecked taxi. "The military's setting up a quarantine zone. We need to get out of the city before they lock it down." I swallowed hard, glancing at the chaos around us. I'd woken up expecting a normal day. Now, it felt like the world was ending. Jake drove like his life depended on it, which, at this point, it probably did. We weaved through the city, dodging wrecks, debris, and figures staggering in the streets. The deeper we went, the worse things looked. We passed a gas station fully engulfed in flames. A bus had slammed into a storefront, its windshield smeared red. People ran in all directions, some screaming, others silent as they bolted past scenes of horror. I checked my phone again, no service. Jake gritted his teeth. "They're shutting communications down." "What? Why?" "Containment." He nodded toward a radio tower in the distance. "If they cut off info, they control the panic." A sick feeling twisted in my stomach. Up ahead, a military blockade stretched across the road. Humvees, barbed wire, soldiers in full tactical gear. Jake cursed and slammed the brakes. A voice blared from a loudspeaker. "Turn around, the city is under lockdown." Beyond the barricade, I saw helicopters circling. More troops were setting up. Civilians on foot begged to be let through, but the soldiers didn't budge. Jake gripped the wheel, eyes darting for an exit. "We can't stay here." I scanned the side streets. Most were clogged with abandoned vehicles or worse, people who weren't people anymore. One of them turned toward us, jerking forward like a puppet with cut strings. I nudged Jake. "Go now." He slammed the gas, taking a sharp left down an alley. We barely fit, scraping past a dumpster as we tore through. The alley dumped us onto another street, only this one was a nightmare. Cars had crashed into each other in a tangled mess of metal and glass. A convenience store's doors hung open, flickering lights casting eerie shadows inside. And the worst part, the figures. Dozens of them, shuffling, twitching. Their heads snapped toward us in unison, like they could sense us. Jake didn't hesitate. He threw the truck into reverse and floored it, but in his rush, he clipped a fallen traffic light. The impact sent us skidding sideways. "Hold on!" he yelled. The truck slammed into a hydrant, jolting to a stop. My head snapped forward, pain flaring up my neck. Then, silence. The figures in the street started moving toward us. I struggled with my seatbelt, my hands shaking. "We gotta move." Jake was already reaching under his seat, pulling out a crowbar. He shoved his door open. I grabbed my backpack and followed, heart hammering as we took off on foot. We sprinted down another alley, the sound of dragging footsteps growing behind us. "We need a place to hide," I gasped. Jake scanned the area and pointed. There. A metal door stood slightly ajar on the side of an old warehouse. Without hesitation, we darted inside. I shoved the door shut and threw the bolt. For the first time since leaving my apartment, I let out a shaky breath. Jake wiped sweat from his forehead. We need a new plan. Outside, the world continued to fall apart. The warehouse smelled like rust and old oil. Streaks of light seeped through shattered windows, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. Stacks of wooden crates and metal shelves filled the space, giving us plenty of cover, but also too many blind spots. I pressed my back against the door, breathing hard. What now? Jake peeked through a crack in the metal frame. They're still outside. I glanced around. There's gotta be another way out. We moved deeper into the warehouse, stepping carefully. Every sound echoed. Our footsteps, our breathing, the distant wail of sirens outside. We passed rusted equipment and a long-forgotten workbench covered in dust. Then Jake spotted a ladder leading up to a catwalk. "Better vantage point," he whispered. "Come on." We climbed up, our movements slow and careful. From above, we had a clearer view of the place. Most of it was empty, except for a few rusting forklifts and piles of debris. Then I saw movement. Across the warehouse, past the shelves, something shifted. A shadow twitched, barely visible in the dim light. I froze. "Jake?" He followed my gaze. "Yeah, I see it." The shape staggered forward, a man. His clothes were torn, his skin pale and mottled. His head jerked unnaturally as he took slow, uneven steps. Jake gripped his crowbar. He hasn't seen us. I swallowed hard. Yet. We stayed perfectly still, barely breathing. The man moved aimlessly, his feet dragging across the floor. Then he stopped. His head snapped upward, right at us. For a second there was silence, then he let out a guttural, rasping noise. And he ran. My heart nearly stopped. "Go!" We bolted. The catwalk rattled beneath us as we sprinted toward the opposite side. Below, the man crashed into the metal shelves, sending tools and crates tumbling. Jake spotted another ladder leading down and slid down it without hesitation. I followed, landing hard on the floor. The man let out another awful sound, a mix between a growl and a choke. And then came another noise. More footsteps. Jake turned, his face pale. We're not alone. A door burst open at the far end of the warehouse. More of them spilled inside, dozens. Their movements were unnatural, twitchy. Some moved slow, others fast. But they all had the same eerie, hollow look, like nothing was left inside them. Jake grabbed my arm. "Run!" We sprinted for the back of the warehouse, weaving between crates and machinery. The exit had to be somewhere. Then I saw it, an emergency door, slightly ajar. We ran full speed, shoving through just as the first of them reached us. The door slammed shut behind us. We were outside. But the city was still burning, and we had nowhere to go. The alley behind the warehouse was eerily silent. No cars, no people, just the distant roar of chaos from the main streets. Jake and I leaned against the brick wall, catching our breath. My lungs burned, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I was too close, I muttered. Jake wiped sweat from his forehead. We can't keep running like this. I peered around the corner. The city was unrecognizable. Smoke billowed from burning buildings. Car alarms blared, mixing with distant screams. And the figures, they were everywhere. Some staggered aimlessly, others moved with purpose, their heads snapping toward any sound, any movement. Jake nudged me. "We need supplies, and a car." I nodded, "But where?" We crept through the alley, keeping low. Every shadow felt like a threat, every distant noise made me flinch. Then we saw it. A small gas station, its neon sign flickering weakly. Jake squinted. "Looks intact." I hesitated. "Or it's a trap." He shrugged. "We don't have a choice." We crossed the street cautiously, stepping over broken glass and scattered trash. A body lay near the curb, motionless. I didn't stop to check if it was truly dead. Jake tried the door, locked. He cursed under his breath, then grabbed a loose brick and smashed the glass. The sound made me wince. We climbed inside, careful of the shards. The place was a mess, shelves knocked over, half-empty displays. The air smelled stale, mixed with something metallic. We grabbed whatever we could: bottled water, canned food, a first aid kit. I found a flashlight near the register and stuffed it into my bag. Jake picked up a tire iron, testing its weight. Better than nothing. Then a noise, a shuffle from the back room. We froze. The door creaked open. A man stood there, his clothes torn, his eyes hollow. His head twitched at an unnatural angle as he took a staggering step forward. Jake raised the tire iron. "Don't make a sound." I gripped my backpack, every muscle tensed. The man sniffed the air. His body jerked like a puppet on broken strings. Then he sprinted. Jake swung hard, the tire iron cracking against the man's skull. He collapsed, but more footsteps echoed from the back room. "We need to go," I yelled. We ran for the broken window. More figures emerged, crawling over the counter, spilling into the aisles. We barely made it outside. Jake pointed. "There, a car." A black SUV sat idling near the gas pumps, its driver's side door open. The owner was nowhere in sight. We bolted for it. I jumped into the passenger seat as Jake slid behind the wheel. "Keys are in it," he said, barely believing it himself. He threw it into drive. As we sped off, I glanced in the side mirror. The gas station was swarmed. The creatures spilled out into the street, drawn by the sound of the engine. Jake gripped the wheel. "We can't stop again." I swallowed hard. "Then where do we go?" He didn't answer, because we both knew there was no safe place left. The SUV tore through the city streets, dodging wreckage and abandoned cars. Jake kept his hands tight on the wheel, his jaw clenched. Streetlights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows on the ruined buildings. Fires raged in the distance. Figures moved along the sidewalks, some slow, others fast. I stopped looking after I saw one of them run at a fleeing man and drag him down. I gripped the dashboard. "Where are we even going?" "Out of the city," Jake muttered. I glanced at the fuel gauge. Half a tank, not great, but better than nothing. Jake swerved around a pileup of crushed vehicles. The radio was pure static. My phone was still useless. It felt like the world had just shut off. Then, headlights. A truck came speeding toward us from the other lane. At first, I thought the driver was fleeing, just like us, but as it got closer, I realized the windshield was shattered. The driver's seat was empty. It had no one behind the wheel. Jake cursed and yanked the wheel. The SUV skidded sideways, barely avoiding the oncoming truck as it smashed into a lamppost. Sparks showered the street. We didn't stop to check. Jake kept driving. The city thinned out as we reached the outskirts. The streets here weren't as choked with wreckage. Fewer people, fewer things. But something about that made it worse. It felt too quiet. Then, up ahead, a bridge came into view, the highway out of town. Jake exhaled. If we make it across... The thought died in his throat. Red lights, barricades. Military vehicles blocked the bridge, lined up like an iron wall. Soldiers stood at the checkpoint, rifles in hand. Beyond them, I saw the road stretch into open land. Jake slowed the SUV. Maybe they'll let us through. I didn't like the way the soldiers stood, rigid, unmoving. Their guns weren't pointed outward toward the city. They were aimed at us. Jake rolled down the window. "Hey, we're just trying to get out." A warning shot cracked through the air. I flinched. One of the soldiers spoke through a megaphone. "Turn around. The city is under quarantine." Jake's hands tightened on the wheel. "You don't understand. Turn around, now." Behind us, a sound rose through the night. A deep, echoing howl. I turned. The city wasn't empty. They were coming. Dozens. No hundreds. Figures poured from the streets, some sprinting, others clawing over wreckage, driven by something primal. The soldiers must have seen them too. Their stances changed, their guns shifted. Then gunfire. The checkpoint erupted in chaos. Bullets tore through the first wave of creatures, but more kept coming. Some dropped, others barely slowed. Jake slammed the SUV into reverse, whipping it around. "We have to go now." I braced myself as he floored it, tearing back into the city. Behind us, the bridge became a war zone. The last chance to escape had just been cut off. And we were trapped. Jake's knuckles turned white on the steering wheel as he sped back into the city. The barricade had been our last hope. Now it was a death trap. Gunfire rattled behind us, but it didn't matter. The swarm was too big. Even if the soldiers held out, we weren't getting through. The streets blurred past in streaks of fire and shadow. My breath came in sharp gasps. "What now?" Jake didn't answer. He just drove, weaving through debris, barely avoiding wrecked cars and collapsed streetlights. Then, the worst possible sound, the engine sputtered. I glanced at the fuel gauge. The needle dipped closer to empty. "Jake." "I see it," he snapped. We had burned through too much gas. The high-speed turns, the sudden stops. It was draining faster than we thought. And the city was still crawling with them. Jake veered onto a side street away from the main roads. The tires screeched as we rounded a corner. Then he slammed the brakes. A barricade, not a military one. This was different, hastily built with overturned cars and wooden planks. Someone had tried to make a safe zone. But the bodies scattered around told me it hadn't worked. Jake cursed under his breath and reversed, but before we could turn around, bang, bang, gunshots. We both ducked as bullets shattered the windshield. Jake threw the car into park, hands raised. "We're not a threat." From the shadows of a nearby building, figures emerged. Survivors. A man stepped forward, holding a rifle. His face was gaunt, his eyes wild. "Get out, now!" We obeyed, stepping onto the pavement slowly. My hands trembled as I raised them. The man eyed us, then nodded toward our SUV. "Fuel?" Jake hesitated, almost empty. A woman beside him scoffed. "Then you're useless to us." I took a step forward. "Please, we just need a safe place." The man's grip tightened on his rifle. "There is no safe place." Before I could respond, another sound split the air. A deep, guttural snarl. The survivors turned, weapons raised. Then, screams. They came from the rooftops, the alleyways, the shadows. Fast ones. Jake grabbed my arm. "Run!" We sprinted as the creatures pounced. The survivors fired wildly, but it didn't matter. They were overwhelmed in seconds. We dove into a nearby building, shoving the door shut behind us. Through the broken window, I saw the man with the rifle go down, clawed hands dragging him into the dark. The woman tried to run. She didn't make it. Jake locked eyes with me. "We can't stay here." I swallowed hard. For the first time, I truly understood the city was lost. The building was silent, but I could still hear the chaos outside. The shrieks, the gunfire, the sickening tearing sounds of what used to be people being dragged away. Jake and I crouched in the darkness, barely breathing. A single flickering emergency light cast eerie shadows across the narrow hallway. The place looked like an old office, abandoned long before all this started. I clenched my fists. "We can't keep running." Jake wiped his sweat from his forehead. "Then what? We fight?" I exhaled sharply. "We need a plan." Jake peeked out through a shattered window. "The streets are crawling. Even if we had weapons, we wouldn't last 5 minutes." I scanned the room, my mind racing. The front door was a death trap. The streets were swarming. But maybe the roof, I whispered. Jake frowned. "What?" "If we can get higher, we'll have a better view, maybe find a way out of the city." He hesitated, then nodded. Better than waiting to die. We moved carefully through the building, stepping over broken desks and shattered glass. Every noise made my pulse jump. Then we reached the stairwell. Jake pushed open the door. The metal creaked. We both froze. Silence. Then the sound of feet dragging across tile. I barely had time to react before a figure lunged from the shadows. I shoved Jake aside as the creature crashed into me, knocking me to the ground. Its face, if you could call it that, was a mess of torn flesh and soulless eyes. Its fingers clawed at my throat, cold and unrelenting. I thrashed, barely holding it back. Then crack. Jake's tire iron slammed into its skull. The thing collapsed, twitching. I gasped for air. "Thanks." Jake pulled me up. "Move." We sprinted up the stairs. Floor after floor blurred past. My legs burned, my chest ached. Then the rooftop door. Jake rammed into it. It wouldn't budge. I helped him. It gave way. We stumbled onto the rooftop, gulping in fresh air. The city stretched before us, burning, crumbling, consumed by the nightmare. Smoke rose in thick columns. Fires raged unchecked. And below, the streets moved, a sea of figures, their numbers endless. There was no saving this place. Jake turned, scanning the rooftops. "There, another building. We can jump." I followed his gaze. A gap stretched between us and the next rooftop. Not far, but far enough. Jake backed up. "I'll go first." He sprinted and leaped. For a second, my heart stopped. Then he landed, rolling onto the rooftop. He turned, reaching out. "Your turn." I backed up, took a breath, and ran. My foot hit the ledge. I jumped. The air rushed past me. For a split second, I thought I wouldn't make it. Then hands grabbed me. Jake pulled me up. "Got you." I collapsed onto the rooftop, heart pounding. We weren't safe, not yet. But we were alive, for now. And as long as we kept moving, we had a chance, a small one. But a chance, Day 1 was over. Day 2 was coming. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.